Your Honor, I've been a deputy for many years. I know a drug dealer when I see one. And this black woman right here, she's exactly the type. He pointed straight at her from the witness stand, his lips curling into a smug, self-satisfied smirk. These people come into our county, live off welfare, think they can do whatever they want, but not on my watch. The prosecutor nodded in quiet approval. The jury listened intently. The judge scribbled notes. And Imani Ellis, the black woman seated at the defendant's table in her orange jumpsuit, hands folded calmly in her lap, said nothing. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She simply watched him with a quiet, steady intensity, as if she were waiting for something inevitable. Deputy Brock Harlan thought he was crushing another nobody, another poor black woman who couldn't fight back, another easy conviction. He had no idea who she really was, or that every lie he had just told would end his career. Have you ever watched someone powerful lie about you while no one believed the truth? Whitmore County, somewhere in the American heartland, population 58,000, stretches across flat farmland dotted with small towns, country churches, and long empty roads where the speed limit rarely changes. From the outside, it looked like a postcard, the kind of place where neighbors still wave at one another, where Friday night football is a religion, where sheriff's deputies are invited to 4th of July barbecues, the kind of place where everyone assumes the police are the good guys. But beneath that surface, something had been rotting for a very long time. Over 5 years, 23 formal complaints had been filed against deputies in the Whitmore County Sheriff's Department. 23 citizens, mostly black, mostly Latino, had walked into that station, filled out the paperwork, and said the same thing. Something happened to me. Something wrong, something illegal. 23 complaints, 23 internal investigations, and 23 times the department investigated itself. You can probably guess what they found. Nothing. Every single time. Every complaint was stamped with the same red word. Unfounded. The names on those complaints changed. The dates changed. But the stories were almost identical. A traffic stop on a lonely road, an officer claiming to smell marijuana, a search conducted without consent, drugs discovered in the vehicle, arrest, conviction, prison. The pattern was so consistent it was almost like someone was following a script. And in a way, someone was. But no one in Whitmore County was asking questions. Sheriff Boone Carver signed off on every dismissed complaint without reading them. His internal affairs department, if you could call it that, consisted of exactly one person, his nephew, a junior deputy who had never investigated anything more serious than a missing bicycle. The system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed, just not for the people it was supposed to protect. 1,200 miles away, in a federal building most Americans have never seen, someone else was paying attention. The FBI's Civil Rights Division monitors patterns. They track complaints. They look for anomalies, counties where the numbers don't add up, where certain communities are arrested at rates that defy explanation. Whitmore County had been on their radar. Too many complaints, too many dismissed, too many convictions for drug possession in a rural county with no significant drug trade. Something was wrong, and they intended to find out what. The decision was made. They would send someone in, not with a badge, not with backup, not with any official capacity, just one agent living as an ordinary citizen, documenting everything from the inside. The mission was simple on paper. Observe, record, and build a federal case. In practice, it meant something much harder. It meant becoming invisible. It meant enduring whatever happened. It meant waiting, sometimes for months, for the right moment to act. They needed someone patient, someone disciplined, someone who understood on a personal level what it meant to be black in a town that wasn't built for you. They chose Imani Ellis, a veteran of the Bureau, specialist in civil rights violations and police misconduct. She had worked undercover operations in the South. She knew how these stories usually went. She knew the risks. And when they asked her to volunteer, she said yes without hesitation. Someone has to be the one they stop, she told her supervisor. Might as well be someone who can do something about it. Imani moved to Whitmore County. She rented a small apartment on Oakdale Street, the part of town the locals referred to, when they thought no one was listening, as the other side. She got a job as a clerk at an insurance office downtown. She drove a 10-year-old Honda Accord with a dent in the rear bumper. She wore no jewelry, kept to herself, smiled politely at neighbors, but never said more than necessary. To anyone watching, she was just another black woman trying to make ends meet. Nothing special. Nothing threatening. That was exactly the point. Her apartment was carefully staged, family photos on the wall borrowed from the bureau's prop department, a child's drawing on the refrigerator, crayon colors bright against the white surface. It suggested a story. Single mother, limited resources, vulnerable. The drawing was her niece's. Imani had no children. She had a badge, a mission, and a recording device disguised as a pendant around her neck. Everything was a cover, and the cover was perfect. Meanwhile, Deputy Brock Harlan had no idea his world was about to collapse. Harlan was a veteran. He had commendations on his office wall, photos shaking hands with the mayor, the county commissioner, the sheriff himself. His brother-in-law, Reginald Thorpe, sat on the county commission and controlled half the local budget. In Whitmore County, Brock Harlan was untouchable. Everyone knew it, including him. He was loud about it, too. In the break room, at the bar after shifts, at family dinners, he talked about cleaning up the streets, about keeping Whitmore safe, about these people who were changing the character of our community. His partner, Deputy Brooke Hayes, heard it all. She'd been riding with him for 2 years. She was younger, quieter, more careful with her words. She noticed things that made her uncomfortable. The way Harlan talked about certain drivers before he even pulled them over. The way evidence always seemed to appear exactly when he needed it. The way his body camera malfunctioned at convenient moments. But she never said anything. She had 2 kids at home, a mortgage she could barely afford, and Brock Harlan had friends in very high places. So when he made jokes, she didn't find funny. She looked away. When he said things that made her stomach turn, she stayed silent. She told herself it wasn't her problem. She told herself she didn't see what she saw. But deep down, Brooke Hayes knew something was very wrong. She just didn't have the courage to admit it. Not yet. It started like any other evening. The sun was setting over Whitmore County, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The temperature had dropped into the low 70s. A gentle breeze moved through the cornfields that lined County Road 12. Imani Ellis was driving home from work, the same route she took every day, the same Honda Accord, the same careful attention to every traffic law. Speed limit 45 miles per hour. Her speedometer showed 43. Seatbelt fastened. Headlights on. Hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. Registration up to date. No outstanding warrants. No criminal history. Nothing out of place. Just a black woman driving home on a country road. She saw the patrol car in her rearview mirror before she heard anything. It had been parked in a gravel turnout, half hidden behind a stand of trees, the kind of spot where deputies waited for speeders or for someone else. The car pulled out behind her and followed at a distance. No lights yet, no siren. Imani kept driving at 43 miles per hour, perfectly straight in her lane. She had been waiting for this moment, not hoping for it, just waiting, because she understood probability. She understood that black drivers in Whitmore County were stopped far more often than white drivers. She understood that Deputy Brock Harlan's patrol route covered this exact stretch of road. Sooner or later, he would stop her. The blue and red lights came on. The siren gave a short whoop. Imani signaled, checked her mirrors, pulled over to the shoulder slowly and carefully, put the car in park, and placed both hands on the steering wheel where they could be clearly seen. Her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from anticipation. Months of preparation came down to this moment. The pendant around her neck was already recording. Footsteps crunched on gravel. A flashlight beam, harsh and white, swept through her rear window and into her eyes. Deputy Brock Harlan appeared at her driver's side window. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't state the reason for the stop. He simply stood there, shining that light directly into her face, making her squint. License and registration. Good evening, officer. Her voice was calm, measured, polite. May I ask why I was pulled over? License and registration. His tone made it clear questions were not welcome. Yes, sir. I'm going to reach for my purse now. It's on the passenger seat. I'm moving slowly. She retrieved her documents and handed them through the window. Harlan took them without acknowledgement. He looked at her license, looked at her, then back at the license. His expression changed. Something shifted behind his eyes, a calculation being made. Imani Ellis, he said her name like it tasted bad. Oakdale Street. That's the Section 8 side of town, isn't it? Government housing. It's just an apartment, sir. Just an apartment. A small, mean laugh. Step out of the vehicle. May I ask why, officer? I don't believe I was speeding. I'm detecting the odor of marijuana coming from your vehicle. Imani Ellis had never smoked marijuana in her life. She had never used any controlled substance. There was no marijuana in her car. There had never been marijuana in her car. But she knew what was happening. This was the script, the same script that had played out 23 times before, the same lie that had sent innocent people to prison. And now, it was happening to her. I don't use any substances, sir. You won't find anything in my car. Step out of the vehicle now. Don't make me ask again. She opened the door slowly, stepped out with her hands visible, and stood beside her car in the fading light, while the patrol car's lights still flashed, turning the whole scene into something surreal. Harlan circled her like a predator sizing up prey. You're very calm, he observed. Most people get nervous when they're pulled over, but you're real calm. Why is that? I have nothing to hide, officer. Nothing to hide. That's what they all say. He gestured toward her car. You won't mind if I take a look, then? Am I required to consent to a search? Something flickered across his face, annoyance. Most people didn't know their rights. Most people were too scared to ask. I don't need your consent. I have probable cause. The odor of marijuana gives me the right to search your vehicle. There was no odor. They both knew it. But it didn't matter. Out here on County Road 12, with no witnesses except the cornfields, Brock Harlan's word was law. He didn't wait for a response. He opened the driver's door and began tearing through her car. The glove compartment, the center console, under the seats. He threw papers on the ground, dumped out her purse, scattered her belongings across the shoulder of the road like they meant nothing, because to him they didn't. A second patrol car pulled up. Deputy Brooke Hayes stepped out. She walked over slowly, staying back, watching from a distance. Imani caught her eye. Hayes looked away. What have we got? Hayes asked. Smell of marijuana, Harlan said, still searching. She's playing dumb, but I know there's something here. He reached under the passenger seat. His hand moved strangely. Too smooth, too practiced, like he had done this exact motion many times before. When his hand came back out, he was holding a small plastic bag with white powder inside. Well. He held it up, letting the flashlight illuminate it. "Look what we have here." Imani felt her stomach tighten, not from surprise. She had expected this. But seeing it happen, watching him plant evidence right in front of her, was something else entirely. "That's not mine." "Oh, it's not yours?" mocked surprise. "Then how did it get in your car?" "I don't know. I've never seen that bag before. And that's what they all say, sweetheart." He stepped closer, dangling the bag in front of her face. "Cocaine possession with intent to distribute. You're looking at felony charges. Years in prison." He was enjoying this. She could see it in his eyes. The power, the control, the knowledge that he could do anything he wanted and no one would stop him. "How does that feel?" he asked. "Coming into my county, living off government assistance, thinking you can do whatever you want? This isn't Chicago. This isn't Detroit. This is Whitmore County. And in Whitmore County, I am the law." Imani said nothing. "Nothing to say now, huh? What happened to all that calm?" "I would like to invoke my right to remain silent." "You'll have plenty of time to be silent in a cell." He grabbed her arm hard, spun her around, and pushed her against the car. "Hands behind your back." "You're hurting me. Should have thought of that before you decided to run drugs through my county." The handcuffs snapped shut, too tight. She could feel the metal biting into her wrists, cutting off circulation. Harlan spun her back around to face him. "You have the right to remain silent," he recited, bored. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you." He said the words like they were a joke, like they didn't mean anything. For people like Imani Ellis, or who he thought she was, they often didn't. As he led her toward the patrol car, Imani looked at Brooke Hayes one more time. Their eyes met. Hayes' face was tight, conflicted. Her hands were clenched at her sides. She had seen something. Imani was certain of it. She had seen Harlan reach into his pocket before finding the drugs. But Hayes turned away, walked back to her vehicle, said nothing, did nothing. Harlan opened the back door of his patrol car and shoved Imani inside, not gently. "You know what your problem is?" He leaned into the doorway, his face inches from hers. "You people think you can come here, take government handouts, break our laws, and nothing will happen. But I've been doing this for many years. I know what's what, and I know exactly what you are." He slammed the door. Through the window, Imani watched him walk back to her car. He was writing in his notepad, already constructing the story he would tell, the lies he would put in his report. Erratic driving, strong odor of marijuana. Suspect became aggressive and uncooperative, drugs found in plain view. None of it was true. All of it would go into an official document, and in Whitmore County, that document would be treated as gospel. But Brock Harlan had made one mistake, one he couldn't possibly have known about. Hours before this traffic stop, Imani Ellis's car had been swept by the FBI's technical team. Standard protocol before any surveillance operation. They had checked every inch of that vehicle with equipment that could detect residue at the molecular level. Her car was clean, completely, absolutely, verifiably clean. If there were drugs in that car now, they didn't come from her. They came from him, and he had done it all on camera. The pendant around her neck had recorded every word, every action, every lie. The hidden camera in her rearview mirror had captured the whole thing from a second angle. At that very moment, in a secure facility in Quantico, Virginia, FBI analysts were watching the feed in real time. They had seen Harlan reach into his pocket. They had seen him plant the drugs. They had seen everything. Deputy Brock Harlan thought he had just made an easy arrest. He had just handed the FBI everything they needed to destroy him. But Imani wasn't ready to reveal herself. Not yet. She needed one more thing. She needed him to tell these same lies under oath in a courtroom, on the record. That was when the trap would finally close. So she sat in the back of his patrol car, wrists aching, watching the fields pass by in the darkness. And she waited. The hours following the arrest were a blur of fluorescent lights and paperwork. Imani Ellis was processed through the Whitmore County justice system like thousands before her. Fingerprinted, photographed, her personal belongings sealed in a clear plastic bag. Phone, wallet, keys, the pendant that contained evidence that could bring down a veteran of the sheriff's department. No one examined the pendant. No one questioned it. Just another piece of cheap jewelry belonging to another poor black woman arrested for drugs. They gave her an orange jumpsuit and led her to a holding cell. The concrete floor was cold. The single toilet had no privacy screen. The other women in the cell looked up when she entered, sized her up, and looked away. To them, she was nobody. Just another statistic. That night, Imani was allowed one phone call. She didn't call a lawyer. She didn't call family. She dialed a number with a Washington, D.C. area code that would ring in a secure office at FBI headquarters. She spoke 2 words. Package received. And then she hung up. In FBI terminology, package received meant the operation had entered its critical phase. The evidence was secured. The target had committed the anticipated violation. The trap was set. Now came the hardest part, waiting. Days after her arrest, Imani stood before Judge Eleanor Grant for her arraignment. The courtroom was half empty. No media, no spectators, just another routine drug case in Whitmore County. The prosecutor, a young man named Derek Langley, who had political ambitions and a high conviction rate, approached the bench with practiced confidence. Your Honor, the people request bail be set at $50,000. $50,000 for a single bag of alleged cocaine. The defendant is a recent arrival to the county with limited ties to the community. Langley continued. She has no local family, no property, no significant employment history in the area. Flight risk is considerable. Imani stood in her orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of her. She said nothing. Judge Grant barely looked up. Bail is set at $50,000. Next case. $50,000. Imani could have paid it. The FBI had contingency funds for exactly this situation. But that wasn't the plan. She needed to stay in the system. She needed to be the defendant. She needed Brock Harlan to feel so confident in his victory that he would take the stand and repeat every lie under oath, so she didn't pay the bail. She was remanded to county custody, transferred to a cell in the women's wing of the Whitmore County Detention Center, and she waited. A public defender was assigned to her case. His name was Calvin Rhodes, graying at the temples with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of too many cases and too little sleep. He was carrying dozens of active cases. He had minutes to review her file. They met in a small room with a metal table and 2 plastic chairs. Rhodes flipped through her paperwork quickly, eyes scanning, not really reading. Miss Ellis, I'm going to be honest with you, he said. Deputy Harlan's word carries a lot of weight in this county. He's been doing this for many years. Juries trust him. Judges trust him. Without contradicting evidence, this goes to trial and the odds are not in your favor. Imani looked at him steadily. What if there was evidence? Rhodes paused. Something in her tone made him look up from the file. Is there? Not yet. He didn't understand what she meant. He wouldn't. Not until the day of the trial, when he would receive a flash drive and a sealed FBI credential along with instructions that would turn the entire case upside down. But that was weeks away. For now, he just nodded, made a note in her file, and moved on to his next case. Meanwhile, Outside the jail, life in Whitmore County continued as if nothing had happened. Deputy Brock Harlan was back on patrol the next day. Same routes, same attitude, same methods. He made 2 more traffic stops that week. 2 more black drivers on 2 more country roads. 2 more complaints filed and 2 more complaints dismissed. Sheriff Boone Carver signed off on Harlan's arrest report without reading it. He had been signing off on Harlan's reports for many years. The man produced results. He made arrests. He kept the conviction rate high. Why would Carver question him now? Commissioner Reginald Thorpe, Harlan's brother-in-law, heard about the Ellis arrest at a family dinner. He clapped Harlan on the shoulder and laughed. "Brock's out there cleaning up the streets," he said. "That's what we pay him for." No one asked questions. No one investigated. The system worked exactly as it was designed to work, for people like Brock Harlan and Reginald Thorpe. Not for people like Imani Ellis. But there was one person in Whitmore County who couldn't stop asking questions. Deputy Brooke Hayes. Every night that week, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the traffic stop in her mind. The way Harlan had circled the car, the way he had searched so aggressively, the way his hand had moved when he reached under the passenger seat. Too smooth, too practiced, like a magic trick he had performed 100 times. She kept seeing the look on Imani Ellis's face, not scared, not panicked, just watching, like she knew something no one else did. Hayes's body camera had malfunctioned during the stop. Harlan had told her to turn it off, standard practice when he was about to do something he didn't want recorded, but her dash cam had kept rolling. On the 4th night, Hayes pulled up the footage on her personal laptop. She watched it once, then twice, then a 3rd time, frame by frame, and there it was, clear as day. Brock Harlan's hand reaching into his own pocket before reaching under the seat. A small motion, easy to miss if you weren't looking for it, but unmistakable if you were. He had planted the drugs. Brooke Hayes sat in her living room, laptop glowing in the darkness, and felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She knew. She had proof, and she had no idea what to do with it. She thought about her kids, about her mortgage, about what would happen to her career if she accused a veteran, the brother-in-law of a county commissioner, of planting evidence. She would be destroyed professionally, personally, completely. So she did something she would regret for the rest of her life. She deleted the footage from her laptop, but she didn't delete it from the cloud backup. Some small part of her, some guilty, cowardly part, couldn't bring herself to destroy it completely. She told herself it didn't matter. No one would ever look. She was wrong. The trial of Imani Ellis. The courtroom was quiet that morning. Routine. The kind of case that didn't attract attention. Just another drug possession trial in a county that processed dozens of them every year. A few local reporters sat in the back row, more out of habit than interest. The gallery was mostly empty. No family members for the defendant, no advocates, no supporters, just the machinery of justice grinding forward as it always did. Deputy Brock Harlan arrived early. He walked through the courthouse doors like he owned the building, which in a sense he did. Handshakes with the bailiff, a nod to the prosecutor, a brief conversation with Sheriff Carver, who had come to show support. "This should be quick," Harlan said. "Open and shut." Carver nodded. "Just like the others. 23 complaints, 23 dismissals, dozens of convictions built on the same foundation of lies, and Harlan had never lost. He took his seat in the front row and waited to be called. Imani Ellis was brought in through a side door. Orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed. Her face showed nothing. The same calm, watchful expression she had worn since the night of her arrest. She sat down at the defendant's table next to Calvin Rhodes, who was organizing papers with unusual care. There was something different about him today. His hands weren't shaking. His posture was straighter. But no one noticed. All eyes were on the deputy about to take the stand. The people called Deputy Brock Harlan. Harlan stood, adjusted his uniform, and walked to the witness stand with the easy confidence of a man who had done this many times before. He raised his right hand, placed his left on the Bible. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?" "I do." He sat down. The prosecutor began. "Deputy Harlan, please describe for the court the events of that evening." Harlan nodded, leaned into the microphone. "On the evening in question, I was conducting routine patrol on County Road 12 when I observed a Honda Accord traveling erratically. The vehicle was swerving between lanes, crossing the center line multiple times. Lie number 1. Imani had been driving perfectly straight at 43 miles per hour. I initiated a traffic stop and approached the driver's side window. I immediately detected a strong odor of marijuana emanating from the vehicle. Lie number 2. There was no marijuana. There had never been marijuana. I asked the defendant to step out of the vehicle. She became hostile and uncooperative, refusing to comply with lawful orders. Lie number 3. Imani had said yes, sir, and no, sir, throughout the entire stop. Based on the odor and her behavior, I conducted a search of the vehicle. Under the passenger seat, in plain view, I discovered a plastic bag containing a white, powdery substance that field tested positive for cocaine. Lie number 4. He had planted that bag himself, and in plain view was not under the seat. The prosecutor nodded along, satisfied. "And in your professional opinion, Deputy Harlan, based on your many years of experience, what did the defendant's behavior indicate?" Harlan looked directly at Imani, that same smirk from the night of the arrest. "In my professional opinion, she knew exactly what was in that car. I've been doing this a long time. I know the type. The type." He said it casually, like it explained everything, like being a black woman on a country road was probable cause. The prosecutor thanked him and sat down. "Your witness, Mr. Rhodes." Calvin Rhodes stood slowly. He picked up a folder from the table and approached the witness stand. Something in the room shifted. The energy changed. Rhodes moved with a precision that hadn't been there during the opening statements. His voice, when he spoke, was calm and clear. "Deputy Harlan, you testified that your body camera malfunctioned during this traffic stop. Is that correct?" "That's correct. Equipment failure." "I see." Rhodes opened the folder. "According to department records, this was your 12th body camera malfunction in the past 18 months. 12 stops, 12 failures." He looked up. "That seems like quite a coincidence, doesn't it?" Harlan's jaw tightened. "I don't control when equipment fails." "No. Let me ask you something else. Of those 12 stops where your camera malfunctioned, 11 resulted in drug arrests. All 11 defendants were black or Latino, and all 11 filed complaints that were subsequently dismissed." Rhodes paused. "Another coincidence?" "Objection." The prosecutor stood. "Relevance." Judge Grant considered. "I'll allow it. The witness will answer." Harlan shifted in his seat. "I patrol areas with high drug activity. That's where I make arrests." "High drug activity?" Rhodes nodded. "Interesting. Because according to county crime statistics, the area where you stopped Ms. Ellis has one of the lowest drug-related crime rates in Whitmore County." He set down a document. "But let's move on." He walked back to the defense table, picked up another folder. "Deputy Harlan, you testified under oath that no recording exists of this traffic stop because your camera malfunctioned. Is that your testimony? That there is no video evidence of what happened on County Road 12 that night?" Harlan nodded, confident again. "That's correct. No recording exists." Rhodes looked at Imani. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Then how do you explain this?" He opened the folder, pulled out a flash drive, and handed it to the bailiff. Your Honor, the defense would like to enter video evidence recovered from the defendant's personal recording device. The courtroom stirred. Harlan's face went rigid. What recording device? What are you talking about? A screen was lowered at the front of the courtroom. The video began to play. Crystal clear, perfect audio, high definition. The entire traffic stop from the moment Harlan's patrol car appeared in the rearview mirror. Everyone watched in silence. They heard Harlan's voice. License and registration. They heard Imani respond, calm and respectful. Good evening, officer. May I ask why I was pulled over? They heard him claim to smell marijuana in a car where no marijuana existed. They heard him call her sweetheart, heard him talk about you people. They watched him search the car, throw her belongings on the ground, and then came the moment on screen, clear as day. Brock Harlan reached into his own pocket, pulled something out, reached under the passenger seat, and found the drugs. He had planted them on video. The courtroom erupted. Gasps from the gallery. The prosecutor's face drained of color. Sheriff Carver half rose from his seat, then sat back down heavily. That's not... Harlan was gripping the arms of the witness chair. Where did that come from? That's been doctored. That's fake. But everyone could see it. The motion, the timing, the bag appearing in his hand before he discovered it. The lies were collapsing in real time. Calvin Rhodes approached the bench with another document. Your Honor, I have one more piece of evidence to enter into the record. He handed Judge Grant a sealed envelope. She opened it, read the contents. Her eyes widened. Mr. Rhodes, is this genuine? It is, Your Honor. Will someone tell me what's going on? The prosecutor was on his feet. What is that document? Rhodes turned to face the courtroom, the gallery, the reporters, Sheriff Carver. Your Honor, at this time the defense moves to dismiss all charges against my client, on the grounds that my client is not who the prosecution believes her to be. He walked back to the defendant's table and stood beside Imani Ellis. My client is not Imani Ellis, insurance clerk from Oakdale Street. My client is Special Agent Imani Ellis, veteran of the Federal Bureau of Investigation Civil Rights Division. Dead silence. She was assigned to investigate civil rights violations in Whitmore County, specifically allegations of evidence planting, false arrests, and racially targeted policing by members of the Sheriff's Department. Deputy Brock Harlan has been the primary subject of that investigation for months. The silence broke. Chaos in the gallery. Reporters scrambling for their phones. Sheriff Carver's face had gone from red to white. The drugs Deputy Harlan claimed to have found in her vehicle were planted. We have video evidence of him doing so. Her car was swept by FBI technicians hours before the traffic stop. It was clean. Rhodes paused, letting the words land. Deputy Harlan didn't arrest a criminal, Your Honor. He arrested the federal agent investigating him. Harlan was shaking his head, muttering, "No, no, no." Under his breath, Imani Ellis stood. For the first time since her arrest, she looked directly at Brock Harlan. Her expression hadn't changed. Calm, controlled, patient. But now he understood what the patience meant. She had been watching him, studying him, waiting for him to do exactly what he did, and he had walked right into her trap. Case dismissed, Judge Grant announced, her gavel coming down hard. All charges against the defendant are dropped. Deputy Harlan, you are hereby suspended pending investigation. You will surrender your service weapon and badge to the bailiff immediately. This matter is referred to the FBI and to Internal Affairs. The courtroom exploded into noise and movement, but Imani Ellis simply walked toward the side door where two people in navy blue windbreakers were waiting. One of them handed her a jacket. She put it on. 3 letters on the back, bright yellow against the blue. FBI. She had entered that courthouse in an orange jumpsuit. She walked out in federal blue. The days that followed were the longest of Brock Harlan's life. Within hours of the courtroom revelation, FBI vehicles filled the parking lot of the Whitmore County Sheriff's Department. Agents and windbreakers walked through the front doors, carrying a federal search warrant signed by a judge in Washington, D.C. They weren't asking for cooperation. They were demanding compliance. "This is my department," Sheriff Carver protested, stepping in front of the lead agent. "You can't just walk in here." And actually, we can. Special Agent in Charge Sophia Morales held up the warrant. Federal investigation into civil rights violations, deprivation of rights under color of law, conspiracy and obstruction of justice. "Your cooperation is appreciated, Sheriff, but it's not required." Carver's face went through several colors, red, white, and finally a sick gray. He stepped aside. The agents moved through the building like a tide. Harlan's desk was cleared. His locker opened and inventoried. His computer seized. Every file, every report, every piece of evidence he had touched in the past 5 years was boxed and carried out to waiting vehicles. The Deputy of the Year photo came off the wall. The commendations were logged as evidence of departmental culture that rewarded problematic behavior. By the end of the day, the sheriff's department looked like it had been hit by a hurricane. And Brock Harlan sat alone in an interrogation room, staring at gray walls. He had called his brother-in-law first. Reginald Thorpe had promised to make some calls, to talk to people to fix this. But Thorpe's calls weren't being returned. The state attorney general's office was unavailable. The governor's chief of staff was in meetings. Old friends who had owed favors for decades suddenly had no memory of Brock Harlan. When the FBI gets involved, local politics stop mattering. Connections evaporate. Everyone develops convenient amnesia. Reginald Thorpe learned that lesson the hard way. Meanwhile, at the FBI field office, the real work was beginning. Analysts spread out every case Brock Harlan had touched, every traffic stop, every arrest, every conviction. The pattern that emerged was devastating. Over 5 years, Harlan had made 89 drug-related arrests. Of those 89, 71 involved Black or Latino drivers. That was nearly 80% in a county where Black and Latino residents made up less than 15% of the population. His conviction rate was 94%, extraordinary by any measure. But when they looked closer, something interesting emerged. Of the handful of defendants who had obtained independent video evidence, dash cam footage, security cameras, cell phone recordings, 5 out of 6 had their cases dismissed. Brock Harlan only won when no one was watching. The analysts started pulling old case files, tracking down former defendants, making phone calls to people who had spent years trying to convince anyone that something wrong had happened to them. The stories were heartbreakingly consistent. He said he smelled marijuana. I've never smoked marijuana in my life. He said I was aggressive. I had my hands on the steering wheel. I said yes, sir, and no, sir, the whole time. He reached under my seat and pulled out a bag. I had never seen it before. I lost my job. Couldn't pass background checks anymore. Nobody would hire me. I spent months in prison, months, for drugs that were never mine. My kids were put in foster care. By the time I got out, my ex-wife had full custody. I barely see them now. One by one, the victims came forward. Men and women who had spent years trying to tell anyone who would listen that the system had failed them, that Brock Harlan was not who he pretended to be. For years, no one believed them. Their complaints were dismissed. Their appeals were denied. Their lives were destroyed. Now someone was finally listening. But the FBI needed more than just victim testimony. They needed someone from inside, someone who could describe what they had witnessed firsthand. They needed Brooke Hayes. She was brought in. Agent Morales met her in a small gray room with no windows. A recorder sat on the table between them. Deputy Hayes, thank you for coming in. Hayes's hands were trembling. She hadn't slept in days. Do I need a lawyer? That depends on what you tell me. Morales opened a folder. You were present during the traffic stop of Imani Ellis. Your body camera footage from that stop is listed as corrupted. Your dash cam footage was deleted from your department computer. She looked up. But you didn't delete it from the cloud. We've recovered that footage, Deputy. We've analyzed it frame by frame. Morales pushed a photograph across the table, a still image from the dash cam. Harlan's hand, clearly visible, reaching into his pocket. You saw this happen. You saw him plant evidence. Silence. I have 2 kids, Hayes finally said. Her voice cracked. A mortgage. Brock has friends everywhere. His brother-in-law is a county commissioner. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to be a peace officer. You took an oath to protect people. I know. Tears were streaming down Hayes's face now. I know. How many times did you see him do it? Plant evidence? Falsify reports? Target people because of how they looked? Hayes closed her eyes. I don't know. 5 times, maybe 6, maybe more. He would tell me to turn off my camera. He would say, watch how it's done. And I watched. She took a shaky breath. I should have spoken up. I didn't. I was scared. You have a choice now, Deputy. Cooperate fully. Tell us everything you witnessed, and there's a path forward for you. Stay silent, and you're looking at accessory charges, obstruction of justice, conspiracy. You'll never wear a badge again, and you might spend time in a cell of your own. Brooke Hayes made her choice. Over the next hours, she told them everything. Every stop she had witnessed, every equipment malfunction she had been told to create, every complaint she had heard dismissed without investigation. She told them about Sheriff Carver, who signed off on reports without reading them, about the Internal Affairs Department run by Carver's nephew, designed to protect officers rather than investigate them, about the culture of the department, where complaints from Black and Latino citizens were treated as inconveniences to be managed rather than problems to be solved. And she told them about the other deputies, the ones who knew something was wrong but said nothing, the ones who looked the other way because it was easier, the ones who had convinced themselves that what Brock Harlan did wasn't their responsibility. When she was finished, Morales turned off the recorder. You did the right thing, Morales said. It should have happened sooner, but it happened. Will that matter? Morales considered the question carefully. I don't know, but it's a start. Soon after, Sheriff Boone Carver held a press conference. He stood at a podium outside the sheriff's department, cameras flashing, microphones thrust toward his face. The Whitmore County Sheriff's Department takes these allegations very seriously. He read from prepared notes. Deputy Harlan has been suspended pending a thorough investigation. I want to assure the citizens of this county that we hold our officers to the highest standards. A reporter from the state paper interrupted. Sheriff Carver, your signature appears on the dismissal forms for 23 complaints filed against Deputy Harlan over 5 years. How can you claim to know nothing about his behavior? Carver's face tightened. I trusted my internal affairs team to conduct thorough investigations. Your internal affairs team consists of one person, your nephew, who has no investigative training and has never sustained a single complaint against any officer. Is that the highest standards you mentioned? Carver had no answer. The press conference ended shortly after. It was his last public appearance as sheriff of Whitmore County. The United States Department of Justice held its own press conference in Washington, D.C. Today we are announcing federal criminal charges against former Deputy Brock William Harlan of the Whitmore County Sheriff's Department. Count 1. Deprivation of civil rights under color of law. Harlan used his position to violate the constitutional rights of citizens based on their race. Count 2. perjury. He had lied under oath in the trial of Imani Ellis, and the investigation revealed in at least 11 other cases. Count 3. Obstruction of justice. He had tampered with evidence, manipulated reports, and participated in efforts to suppress complaints. Count 4. Evidence tampering. He had planted drugs in the vehicles of innocent people, then arrested them for crimes that never occurred. Maximum combined sentence: 30 years in federal prison. The DOJ also announced that it had reached a consent decree with Whitmore County, a legally binding agreement requiring sweeping reforms to the sheriff's department. Mandatory body cameras for all deputies with tamper-proof storage that uploaded directly to an independent server. Independent oversight of all uses of force, all complaints, and all arrests involving minority citizens. A civilian review board with subpoena power, authority to compel testimony, and the ability to recommend termination, complete restructuring of internal affairs, including the removal of Carver's nephew and the hiring of trained investigators from outside the department. The system that had protected Brock Harlan for many years was being torn down and rebuilt from the ground, and it was only the beginning. Judge Eleanor Grant, the same judge who had dismissed the charges against Imani Ellis, ordered a comprehensive review of every conviction in Whitmore County that relied on Brock Harlan's testimony. The results were staggering. 41 cases were flagged for review. 23 convictions were vacated, thrown out entirely as unreliable. 11 people were released from prison. 11 human beings who had spent years locked up for crimes that never happened. Some had served 18 months. Some had served 3 years. One man had been incarcerated for almost 5 years. When he walked out of the prison gates, he fell to his knees and wept. His mother, who had visited him every month for years, stood beside him, crying too. "I told them," she kept saying. "I told them he didn't do it. No one listened." Now everyone was listening. Months after Imani Ellis walked out of that county courtroom in FBI blue, Brock Harlan walked into a different courtroom. This time he was the defendant. The trial lasted days. The evidence was overwhelming. The prosecution played Imani's recording twice, frame by frame, moment by moment, showing exactly how Harlan had planted the drugs. They called Brooke Hayes to the stand. She testified for hours, describing stop after stop, lie after lie. They presented the statistical analysis. 71 Black and Latino drivers arrested out of 89 total, a pattern that couldn't be explained by coincidence. They called the victims. One by one, they took the stand and told their stories. Years of their lives stolen, families destroyed, all because one man with a badge decided they looked like the type. Harlan's defense attorney tried everything: equipment malfunction, bias in the investigation, a dedicated public servant being unfairly targeted. The jury wasn't buying it. They had seen the video. They had heard the testimony. They knew the truth. On the final day, Special Agent Imani Ellis took the witness stand. The prosecutor asked her, "Agent Ellis, when Deputy Harlan arrested you, you could have identified yourself immediately. Why didn't you?" Imani looked at the jury, then at Harlan. "Because my job wasn't to save myself. It was to save the next person, and the one after that." She paused. "If I'd revealed myself on that roadside, he would have apologized. The department would have covered it up and nothing would have changed. I needed him to lie under oath. I needed the system to hear it. I needed the world to see what the people of this county had been living with for many years." Harlan couldn't meet her eyes. He stared at the table in front of him, jaw clenched, face red. The jury deliberated for hours. They returned with a verdict: guilty on all 4 counts. Weeks later, Brock Harlan stood before the judge for sentencing. "Mr. Harlan," the judge said, You swore an oath to protect and serve. Instead, you used your badge as a weapon against the very people you were supposed to protect. You planted evidence. You lied under oath. You destroyed innocent lives. The judge paused. This court sentences you to 12 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. Brock Harlan, who had spent many years putting innocent people in prison, would now experience what he had done to them. In the gallery, the men and women he had wrongfully convicted sat watching. Some were crying, some were nodding, some just stared, finally seeing the justice they had been denied for so long. Imani Ellis was there too, in the back row, quiet, watching. When the verdict was read, she didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply closed her notebook, stood up, and walked out. There was more work to do. Today, Whitmore County looks different. There's new leadership at the sheriff's department, new training, new accountability. Every deputy wears a tamper-proof body camera that uploads directly to an independent server. They can't turn it off. They can't delete the footage. Everything is recorded. Everything is stored. And a civilian oversight board reviews every complaint. The system that protected Brock Harlan for many years no longer exists. But the damage he caused hasn't disappeared. 23 people had their convictions overturned. 11 were released from prison. The county established a restitution fund, money that can never fully repay what was taken. One of the victims finished his college degree last spring. He had started it before his arrest years ago. Another reconnected with children she hadn't seen in years. They're rebuilding slowly. A third opened a small barbershop downtown. On the wall, he hung his certificate of exoneration. "So people know," he said, "so they remember." Special Agent Imani Ellis was promoted to Supervisory Special Agent in the FBI's Civil Rights Division. She continues to investigate police misconduct across the country. When asked about the Harlan case, she doesn't talk about herself. She talks about the people he harmed and the ones she hopes to protect next. "I think about them," she said in an interview. "The people who didn't have proof, the ones who tried to tell the truth and no one believed them. That's who I do this for. Today, if you drive down County Road 12, you won't see anything unusual. Just a stretch of rural road, fields on both sides, cars passing peacefully. But something happened here that changed everything. A man with a badge thought he could lie without consequences. He thought the system would protect him. He thought no one was watching. He was wrong. Because sometimes the truth doesn't disappear. It waits. And when it's ready, it speaks louder than any lie ever could. Across America, traffic stops remain one of the most common interactions between citizens and police. Studies show that black drivers are stopped at disproportionate rates and searched more often, even when those searches find nothing. Change happens when we document it, when we demand it, when we refuse to stay silent. Have you ever witnessed something wrong and felt powerless to speak up? What would you do if you had the evidence to prove the truth? If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below. What does justice look like in your community? Subscribe for more stories that expose the truth and honor the people who fight for it. Thank you for watching.